about business models, and I did base my presentation on the assumption that you guys were present on the previous startup class, which based on the poll that was conducted earlier, I understand was not a very, very good assumption to do. As it turns out, there were only a handful of you. So for some of you, there might be topics which I'm going to cover faster or a bit more in a sort of a bird's eye view than you would prefer. Unfortunately, time is limited and I have to keep to the agenda that I crafted. However, later on I urge you to actually walk up to me and I'll be happy to explain anything of interest in more detail. So a bit about myself. I'm a sales guy and product manager and entrepreneur all in one person. I started speaking publicly, or actually singing publicly, when I was about 5 years old. I was already singing on Linnaheil main stage. And I did my first sales calls when I was 15. I remember I was doing an internship at one of my dad's companies, selling business advisory for information systems. I have no idea what I was selling, but I picked up the phone and I started calling to Estonia's mid-level and largest corporate CEOs and business owners. Obviously, in the beginning, it wasn't all so rosy. I think the first 2 phone calls I made, it took me about a week actually to do that. So I was like going there to the office. I was mentally preparing myself. Now I'm going to do that, and I actually wound up walking home two consecutive days, and then only on the 3rd day I actually made a call, which failed miserably. But then I picked up myself, and while doing that, I picked up the pace. And the 2nd week, I was like calling already like an animal, and I liked the phone really well. So ever since then, I've been involved in speaking up to people and trying to intrigue them to buy into different ideas, whatever it is. I've been trained as a strategic marketeer, and I've been working for different international companies for about 10 years as a salesman, export manager, marketing manager, and did my first startup called Digibreen when I was studying as a student back in Estonian business school. I must have been around 21, 22. It failed miserably. I didn't even know what the hell I was doing back then. But I did manage to do one thing that I'm really proud of. I actually went up there. I had never heard of anything that remotely resembles lean startup or customer development or anything of sorts. And I didn't have any product. I only had an idea, and I actually went to EBS, Estonian Business School's rector, and I sold it to him. So he was actually ready to put down school money to buy my product, which I didn't have. I think if at that point I would have realized that such an approach would become useful for startups all over the world, I perhaps could have received Steve Blank even trying to articulate customer development method. Anyway, so let's recap. What the hell are we doing here? We're talking about startups. Startups as in companies or human organizations that are in search of business ideas or business models. And moreover, scalable, highly scalable, radically scalable business models. Now, the startup life cycle can be, by today's almost official canon, divided into 4 stages. There's the ideation stage, which is often also referred to as customer discovery. Then there's the problem solution fit moment that we oftentimes refer to as an action-based process, as customer validation. Then there's the product market fit stage, which we other times might refer to as customer creation. And finally, it's the scaling and growth phase, after which you are not anymore a startup. It doesn't mean that this is the end of your company, it's simply the end of you as a startup by definition. After that, you become a scale-up instead of a startup. Then you're a proper, perhaps a multinational company that is servicing a global market, and you're out of the startup life cycle. So I refer to a key phrase, business model, and I did a quick search for what the hell it is. It's a compound noun, but the idea is that it's a systematic approach to earning revenue and moreover earning profits. It's something of a lifeline, a blueprint for a company's plan to become and remain sustainable, that is, keep living and breathing. So let's think about a couple of examples. This is a restaurant. What is a restaurant's main business model?
Sell food.
Sell food to
People.
who are hungry. Yeah. So it's prepare, serve food to people who are hungry, and we actually regard restaurants serving food as a service, not as selling a product. Okay. So what's that? This is a car rental. What is a typical car rental's business model? Who are their customers? Travelers, both business and leisure. Okay. And what do they offer to those travelers? What's the problem that they're solving?
Transportation.
Huh? Transportation. You know, moving flexibly from A to B. Yeah. This is what they're offering. So what is a nightclub? Business model for a nightclub. Who are the customers for a nightclub?
People who want to dance. This is what I told my mum when I was going to clubbing. When I
Biggest
was
income from nightclub from bar.
Exactly. So oftentimes, not so much in Estonia, but oftentimes in the rest of the Western world, people are actually admitted into a bar or a club or nightclub for free. For free, oftentimes even they are offered complimentary coupons to buy the first or even couple of first drinks. Why? To get them on the mood to spend even further, yeah? Even more. But nevertheless, you guys didn't answer, you know, who is the typical customer segment for a nightclub?
Single people.
People who want to blow up steam. Yeah? And what do they do?
single people.
Doesn't matter, single, not so single.
Still single.
Point is, they are people who want to blow up steam. There are various ways for doing that. Legal way that the nightclub is offering is selling alcohol, but oftentimes clubbing under the official radar is also incorporating other means of blowing up steam, as we've become to learn. So, looking at these different ways of how business is made, what we're going to look at today are the mechanics of earning revenue. Now, I'm going to leap over the concept of business model, which is actually looking into not only ways how to capture value in terms of earning revenues, but also it's looking into how the whole business is run. But I've been asked today to actually focus on the revenue side, so we're going to cover 20 plus different revenue models that are today relevant in the startup, mainly online startup scene. In the case of business model canvas, there are 9 building blocks that constitute a business model. There's the customer segment, which ideally has a validated problem that the customer really wants to solve so bad that they are actually willing to pay for, ideally, for the value proposition or the product solution that is solving the problem. Then there's the question of delivering this solution via either physical or virtual channels. Then there's the question of how do you run a foolproof mechanism of growing customer loyalty and to grow customer base. And on the kitchen side, we see there are we need to list out the key resources that are necessary for our business model to actually come to life. The key activities to take these resources, turn these into a business model value proposition, and then deliver via already specified channels to the customer, and then finally to monetize this. This is where we will be focusing during today's presentation. Finally, we see that there are also key partners that we can identify. Oftentimes, in nowadays, online and offline and Internet of Things types of startups, we see that strategic partnerships are crucial in either forging or maintaining startup success, either in the validation phase or in the growth phase. And finally, what's the price tag on all of this? And then, in the end of the day, we need to compare whether the upside is in fact larger or bigger or more significant than the downside, the cost side of running a business. Now, business model canvas is not unique. It's simply a mind tool, a way to frame issues, a way to frame potential problems, issues, solutions. Another one is called, it's actually a reiteration of the original business model canvas. It's called Lean Canvas. And it's playing around the same building blocks, but it's looking at different interactions, different emphasis between those building blocks. Another one that's is called Fluid Minds. It's a little bit of a more breakaway type of a business model descriptive tool. Anyway, and finally, there is something called Board of Innovation that is taking very graphic approach to describing business models. For instance, this is my startup. I'm offering a service to my customer base, and they are, in fact, paying for this in the form of subscription. Is it annual, monthly? I don't know. Okay, let's take another look. Let's make it more complicated. I'm running a startup, but I'm not actually charging the consumer for anything. Instead, I'm using a third-party advertising business model whereby actually the price is impressions that the advertiser is collecting, and the advertiser is in fact paying for me either by impressions or by click-through rates. Okay, so you can go quite intricate into detailing what a business model looks like or feels like or what it is using different kinds of methods. Having worked with several of these, I've come to learn that it's not so much a question about what is the correct one to use. Moreover, is it important that you feel comfortable with the way how it handles, how it feels, the mental framework of working around a business model or using this material to make sense of it, and just stick to this. Occasionally, maybe look around, see if there's anything being updated, but other than that, keep your loyalty. However, don't regard it as something of a singular truth out there. Okay, so be accepting when other people use different models describing the concept of business models. So now I want to turn into the main area of our discussion or this presentation today is where is the money? Yeah? So roughly we could say that there are three categories of business models that are extensively used out there in the real world on the startup scene. These are the three. It's a category of free business models, meaning that the main value offering is actually offered and delivered for free for the customer. And there are some other ways perhaps to actually monetize on the whole operation. Then there is the paid business model. Business model category, and finally a sort of a hybrid or a mix in between the two. First, let's take a look at what's out there as free. So something that is totally free, that doesn't have any plans at all of monetizing. Thank you. Of monetizing value that they are delivering is a company called Sunrise. I actually accidentally. I later on realized that this is actually from another calendar app, Peak, but I think 2 days ago there was a PR statement that a calendar company called Sunrise has been sold to Microsoft, and there were some Estonian investors who benefited from that roughly $100 million acquisition. One of them was Taavet Hinrichs, the co-founder of Transferwise, and another was founder of Teleport, Sten Tappi. So the idea is that you build a solution that is solving real customer problem for free, and you solely focus on ramping up your customer base with the intent that you will be acquired by a larger company, and all your efforts will be compensated with that acquisition. Something of similar type was the acquisition of WhatsApp by Facebook for significantly more dollars. So second is pay what you watch. It's for instance, Netflix is a type of business model that uses this type of business model. You're able to you basically watch for free for whatever you want, but there is a sort of speedometer or a watchometer that is slowly ticking away, and you are able to monetize either minutes or the amount of data that you've been using for. I mean, from the 90s, we can recall that, perhaps you can't, but I can, but that there was a dial-up connection, like maybe you've seen some movies. So this is how you logged into an internet, and
way too young for that.
Way too young for that. Anyway, it was a very, very peculiar age or era. Anyway, and even in Estonia, telecommunication operators were actually charging you by the amount of data that you were consuming. I remember it was the early days of MP3 music file format, and it took me about 4.5 hours to download some kind of a jazz song MP3 file, and it wasn't even of any popular, presented by any popular artist. It was just some random MP3 file, because there weren't any out there so much. So I actually stumbled upon an MP3 file, so I had to read about what this file was about. Actually downloaded Winamp, which was a media player at the time. And then I actually went back to the original link location and ended up downloading the MP3 file. I remember my father was totally pissed off after end of the month seeing the data bill. It was enormous at the time for one bloody MP3 file. So another free option is oftentimes used with blogs or other type of sort of nice to have value that we are happy to consume on occasion, but it doesn't really solve any real problem that is creating the true pain for us. Something that I stumbled upon a couple of days ago was Kaur Gender was writing another one of his crooked stories on Nihilist, and really at the bottom of the blog post there was a call to action: buy me a coffee. Lugu meeldis, siis osta mulle kohvi, parem kui 1000 laiki. Okay, another one, freemium. This is something that you most definitely are accustomed with. The idea is that you're using the main value offering for free of charge, and you're able to buy your way into more premium solutions along the way, usually within the value offering itself, be it an app or a web service. So that's interesting. Free as for swapping. Swap.com is an interesting company that was created already back in 2004 that is running rather well in the United States. It's actually owned by a Helsinki VC company, interestingly. And the idea is that since children's clothes and footwear and accessories in the early growth, physical growth age or age gap, it's not really sensible to buy this, and if you do, you actually don't have much use to it anymore after your child has grown out of those clothes or footwear. So you're able to actually engage in a free swapping based online economy. And you create value through this, and you're actually able to, as we're later on looking at another business model, you're able to monetize the data that you're collecting through customer interaction on the platform. So something that is really straightforward is a subscription-based monetization model. Now we're already in the paid category. 37 Signals is a development company that is fairly known, at least on the startup scene. And one of their early products was a lightweight CRM solution, customer relationship management solution called Basecamp. And they didn't run it as a freemium version. They do offer a 30-day trial on all accounts. However, later on you are automatically converted into a paying customer, and they offer you different pricing tiers, basic, plus, premium, max. And as you can see here, plus has been emphasized. It's a way of manipulating with the customers and sort of driving them to make certain choices which you as a company owner would prefer. So going forward, paid as premium. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Spotify. Audio is Spotify's direct competitor, but they use, in addition to using a very different design language, they use a totally different business model approach, where Spotify is more of a freemium type approach, where they are offering you free access or sort of a limited functionality access to their main service, and you need to pay in order to progress on premium levels and unlock premium features. These guys are fully premium. They don't offer you a free option to use the service. They have, I think, a 10-day trial version opportunity, and later on you're converted into basic, premium, and family pricing tiers. So paid in-app option. So Fortumo has been a company that's been sort of driving the innovation from Estonia actually for already, I don't know, 7 years maybe? 6 years I think. In terms of mobile payments, and something that they've been working hard to introduce to the world together with some of the other industry innovators is the way how payments are handled almost seamlessly within the mobile app itself, rendering or delivering the opportunity for start entrepreneurs to actually build up a series of temptations within the mobile app or web service app to start paying up on a higher level for either temporary or more permanent premium app solutions. One of the examples that I would draw here is an app called Luminosity. It's actually free to use, but it uses in-app payment opportunities to unlock specific features. And the overall idea behind Luminosity is that you're using the app to actually train your IQ, and the overall goal is to ramp up your IQ level. And by unlocking specific features or power features within the app using the in-app payments, you're able to progress much faster. So pay per use is another very interesting model. It's somewhat similar to what I described in relation to the dial-up connection. The idea is Amazon Web Services, for instance, is a cloud-based data service or data hosting service, and you basically pay based on the amount of volume of data that is going through this infrastructure setup. And this is a very interesting growing business model, mainly in the business to business, that is enterprise business ventures. Another one is pay as you go. It's also referred to as dynamic pricing or dynamic revenue. Dropbox is a good example of that in the early days. I'm not so sure anymore if it's still happening. So the idea is that after a while, I mean, first you have a free option to use a certain limited set of free memory. Later on, you are motivated by different means to actually upgrade to premium level, but then the premium level is also restricted in its data size or data limitations, and Dropbox introduced a dynamic model to actually increase your monthly payment as the amount of data that you are storing on the web servers, their cloud servers, as it increases. So this is something fairly straightforward. You know, like in the olden days when shoemaker was, taking measurements, making shoes, and then selling it. It's called item sale or single purchase, and this is still, one of the most conservative approaches to business model, but works like a charm. Mm-hmm. Now, another one that most certainly you are familiar with is the license fee. I myself am a Mac user. Sometimes I cheer for them, sometimes they make me cry with their license politics. And recently OX Yosemite actually was, you could upgrade it for free from your previous license level for the OS, the operating system. However, if you would, let's say I have, for instance, an old, couple of years older Mac that is not subject to this kind of a free upgrade model, I will actually have to pay now to upgrade to this OS X Yosemite license fee. Next is advertising. This is Endomondo, one of the fitness tracking apps, or nowadays more of a cross-platform solution whereby you're actually able to interact with your data and your peers and the challenges, the fitness challenges that you enroll into, also on your web server, and both in your web server and in your app. If you haven't opted for a premium service for a monthly subscription fee, then you are actually presented with selected advertisements. This is a way of using a third party in the game, like I demonstrated earlier on a schematic, how to finance your operations, how to monetize even your free user base. So another one that is that has been growing, perhaps not so explosively, but steadily, is affiliate marketing approach. This is a non-direct approach whereby there are a network of connected, interested parties who engage in a sort of a network approach to supporting each other's interests, and then balancing off in the end the revenue side of who is actually going home with a stack of dollars. One of the final ones that I wanted to tell you about is something called a resell data business model approach. This is used by patients like me. It's a web platform in the United States where patients are able to share their experiences with the illnesses that they are suffering from, their experiences with the doctors, etc., etc. And the idea is that the whole platform is delivered free of charge to all of the users, and instead the whole user data is actually anonymized and then aggregated and then repackaged in order to make sense as an information and then sold to health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies to do their post-trial marketing research. I think that's almost the last one, is get one, give one. It's called, one of the most remarkable examples of that is Tom's Shoes. The idea behind the company was that buy a pair of loafers and sneakers, and we will make sure to deliver a similar kind of pair of loafers or sneakers to the developing countries where children need footwear. It ended up in a drastic PR nightmare, because the company was actually producing a lot of the loafers in America, and then started shipping them to the developing countries, let's say in Africa, and they ended up spending more money to run the overall operations than it would have been to actually give direct and dedicated aid. So let me run through the final ones. Commission, this is something that you are perhaps fairly familiar with from Airbnb, so that's self-explanatory. Auction, something that is very interesting is that eBay has actually teamed up with Sotheby's now, and they are looking into creating the line between a physical auction and a virtual auction. They want to create the line more ambiguous. They're actually creating hybrid auctions nowadays, and auction call it is a very interesting business model or revenue model to pursue. Then something that is very interesting that's so far been mostly focusing or been employed in the physical world is called franchise model. The idea is that you package the whole business concept with the business model, the marketing materials, all the proven track record into a wholesome, comprehensive deal, and you are able to license it out to be used locally. One of the most successful franchises is McDonald's. Another one is Subway, etc., etc. And recently, in the United States, we've seen some digital franchises popping up, and the one here is called Order Out or Order Up, and the idea is that they are revolutionizing, that's their word, revolutionizing the way how corporate lunches are ordered, and they are setting this up as a franchise business. So everybody needs to run this locally. So this is a very interesting one. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's called Bait and Hook, or another approach to this, or a title is also a razor blade business model. It was popularized by Procter & Gamble and his Gillette razor series. The idea was that you got to purchase at a very, very low cost a razor, and later on the additional blades were sold to you at a significant markup. And this is how Gillette is actually earning revenue and significant profits for Procter & Gamble. It's actually a razor blade business. So there's crowdfunding, which is a very sort of hybrid version of using monetizing your value. It started out as a way to validate projects, and there was a very strong sort of called backer community that was supporting the early ideas that were, hopefully resolving a real customer problem for some people. But later on, crowdfunding has turned into a sort of a campaign sales platform, and this is something that Click and Grow founder can also attest to. They actually had to produce everything in advance to be ready for the whole overall campaign, and later on, when the crowdfunding campaign was underway, they already were shipping out the product. So it's a bit sort of a lightning or a flash sales platform, actually. Okay, almost final one is No Frills platform. This is a very interesting business model which is run on the cost side. When mainly we've been focusing on the business models that are earning margin on the plus side. In other words, they are creating value so high that the customers are willing to pay a markup of different levels. Then a no-frills approach as a business model is turning the approach upside down. They are going at incredibly competitive rates, and they are earning margin or profit by keeping their costs incredibly low. So you're able to actually earn profit two ways, either by earning a significant markup or by being able to run your business significantly more efficiently than your competitors are doing. So the idea is actually Google has a big business concept behind it. Android as a platform is free to use, and all of the operators and hardware manufacturers can use it. You and me, we can tinker on it. It's free to use for everybody. Because Android has created a tremendous new arena for advertising. When Google started out with their original business concept, the search engine, then their main idea was to monetize via presenting ads on the right side of the search results. Yeah? The same concept was very cleverly actually executed with developing the Android platform, where Android is now the most prolific smartphone platform, the operating system in the world, and they are soon taking over their web revenue for Google. And finally is something called long tail. I'm looking forward to seeing this in execution for online companies. Something that I can come up with is an example from Scania, or any truck company for that matter. In fact, trucks are sold under their own cost of goods sold price. That is the price, of X words or price out of factory. Why are they doing this? Scania is actually selling this approximately minus 30% of the real price of the Scania truck. Maintenance, exactly. So it's the after-sales service and a tremendous markup with the auto parts, where Scania is actually not only breaking even, but earning significantly more markup in the long run. This is, of course, a strategy that needs a very long-term strategic perspective into running a business, something that is perhaps difficult for a startup to execute. That's why I said that I'm interested and intrigued to see if there's anybody who can actually pull this off. I haven't found myself, or I haven't actually myself found any good examples of this in the sort of modern startup scene. So to finish off, I would suggest that you guys actually read a book called The Art of Profitability. It's also in Estonian. It's called Kasumi Kunst. And the idea is that this book focuses more in depth than what we discussed today. When I was telling you more about how to earn revenue, this book is now looking more into the details, sort of zooming in even more and looking into how do you churn out real profit from revenue that you're already earning. And there are roughly 23 models that this guy is identifying. It's a very talented Polish economist and business consultant that has authored this book. Anyway, sorry for the long talk. I hope that this was a bit revelationary in the sense that there are significantly more ways to skin a cat than what we initially might think of. And an item sale or a singular purchase sale is, we've come a long way from there. And nowadays we see that during the last, let's say, 8 years, freemium has been the mainstay business model that has been serving very various businesses all around the startup scene. But we're seeing now new contestants for a very strong business model. And I hope that you are keeping your eyes and ears open to see and test out different one of those. Thank you very much.